Hello, hello. Welcome to the Bardstream, everybody. Hope you are doing well. I had hoped to stream earlier, but then life happened, and so there was a delay. But I'm here, and whoever cares to join in and leave some comments, I will do my best to respond. I might not be able to, though, this time around, just because I've got a few things to show off, and I have a guest, a familiar face probably for some of you. So, oh my gosh, I'm in a little bit of a whirlwind. I've been extremely busy. One thing that's been occupying me very much is this. That's right, Monsters Heroes is a real thing now. It actually exists in physical reality. So if anyone has this ordered, this will be shipped out to you very soon. If you can see a bit of the mess in my office, I'm actually doing some of the boxing myself here in the office because I want to get this out as fast as I can, because I know people have been waiting for a long time. If you don't have it ordered, there's a link down in the video description where you can order it. It'll come in as, you know, kind of the tail end of technically the pre-orders, so you'll still get it at the pre-order price, which is $10 less than the retail price. There's the hardcover or the PDF, and if you order the hardcover, you get the PDF included along with that. So check that out if you have not already. I'm super excited. It turned out quite well. The print quality is really good. Very rich colors, really good textures, super sharp detail. But more on that to come in the upcoming days and weeks. All right, let's move on to the next thing, because I could talk about Monsters Heroes all day long, but we got other things to do. I'm going to do a drawing for September's selected patrons. So if you are not aware, I do a selection every month of 2 patrons that are subscribed on my Patreon. And depending upon which level a person is at, one's name can be in the drawing pool, the randomized pool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can have multiple instances of your name in there at higher levels, along with other rewards. Link to Patreon is down in the video description as well. That's Esper the Bard on Patreon. So I'm going to draw 2 names, and I will contact the winners via email and Patreon message, and you get to choose a reward. You can provide a monster concept to be in next month's newsletter, or be a guest on the Bardstream, as you'll see right here, or have a Zoom chat with me, or pretty much anything you want. So let's give this a spin here and see who the fortunate souls are for the month of September. This will be for the upcoming month. I was hoping to lay it on Lucas. I've been wanting him to get chosen. Alcuso, congratulations to you. I think it's the first time I've seen your name come up. So look out for contact from me. And the second, let's see who we got coming up next. Mike Perry. Congratulations to Mike Perry. You have been selected as well, and look out for an incoming email from me. Well, I think that'll probably do it for these first couple updates. There's a lot of things I could talk about, a lot of projects I'm working on. I've got this new series that's been doing pretty well, the Monster Melee. So if you've been watching Monster Melee, I hope you've been enjoying those. And I am making an ongoing list of battles that I do want to run, and I'm going to try to get around to them, at least all the ones that I think are really cool, and it's a growing list. So thanks for all the comments and all the support, everyone who's been watching those videos. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring on, I guess, as I said, you might recognize him from the channel. We have Vince.
Hey, Esper.
Hello. It's been a minute.
It has been a long time since I've been on stream with you.
It has been. For those that don't know, Vince has played in some live stream campaigns of mine, D&D campaigns, Land of Dreams and Nightmares and Mirrormorn. actually just a few months ago, while I was doing some like illustration work for Monstrous Heroes, I was listening to those old episodes of the Land of Dreams and Nightmares, and
Oh man.
it, that
Oh,
it was
Drake fell
Drake fell, and Drake
for the
fell
longest
fell.
time. Spoke in what was it? I had him in speaking in third
Third person.
person.
Yeah.
Yes, and I remember watching the chat a couple times, and people weren't happy that I spoke in third person, but I liked that.
There's always a complainer or two out
Yeah,
there.
there were always a few, but I when I first created him, I wanted something. He was kind of my real first character. He wasn't the very first character I've ever played, but he definitely was the first character I really got into. I really felt I put myself, I could play as him as an
Yeah.
actual character
Yeah, I could see
instead
that.
of just this strong barbarian, which was my first character. Really not great stats on that, but I never really got into that character. But Drake, oh man, I love Drake Fell. Great character.
It was
the
a
way he
great
died-
campaign.
Oh, it was an awesome campaign.
The streaming technology and the VTT technology that I used was kind of rudimentary, but
Oh yeah,
actually listening to it, I think it's still great. It's a great story, great characters. Just listening
it
to it
was
and watching
a very
it's
good
still cool.
campaign. I will be honest. I that is the campaign I try to emulate when I run my stuff.
Okay. Well,
I try to.
glad it sparked
And
something.
again, this is which is what I wanted to talk to you about is just running games, just like how we go about playing. I running the game. Like, how do you do your random encounters? Like, I actually built my own random table for entire environments, which I think took me almost 3 hours to do.
If you got that done in 3 hours, you were going pretty fast.
Yeah.
The first
but
answer that comes to my mind of running games is, well, what you got to do is make it overcomplicated and spend way too long preparing an entire world.
Oh my
It's
gosh, yeah.
easy to poke. It's easy to poke fun at the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide for starting off with a section about creating a multiverse and creating a whole world, but that is what a lot of DMs end up doing, which may not be the best idea. But
No, I that's what I did for my first campaign. I created my own world, and the group that I'm currently running for, actually most of them are all my coworkers
cool.
or former coworkers or direct family members. So we're a really close group. I ran them through Dragon Heist first.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of because we had a couple of people who had not played in a while or were brand new to the system, so I wanted to get a feel for where everybody was at. And after that, we've actually gone into my actual homebrew world that I have, and I built a map which I used a digital map maker to create the map.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say build time, that was my longest thing because I kept going in and trying to add the details to it, which took the most time. The initial layout I got done real quick, but going in and doing the little details, that took the long time to do.
Man. Yeah. So it's interesting that you bring up this topic because it kind of coincides with something that I've been thinking about and deciding upon recently. So as I was mentioning to you, on my Discord, I'm getting this community campaign running. It's something I've been talking about and wanting to do for quite a while.
Yeah,
So
I saw that.
The idea is a big pool of players and multiple GMs, and GMs just post when they could run a session, and then players just join on to that. So it eliminates a lot of the headache of scheduling.
Oh
So
yeah,
it solves the scheduling issue. It's just kind of a pick up games as you can, and it is a persistent world. Each GM has like a small region and some kind of base or fortress or main city in that region, and then you launch off from there and do the adventurers go on different.
I was about to say that. I was actually about to say you could give your the GMs an individual area of your world, of this world to control. So I would say like not even just a city. You could even go continent size if you don't have enough. If you really wanted to go crazy with it, they have a continent that they control, and this landmass is whatever happens on this landmass they are in charge of.
What it's looking like at the moment is that each GM really will just have a small region, but some GMs are helping with the developing of an entire continent, even if like Jader, he goes by Jader on Discord. He goes by your Pocket GM on YouTube. He's developing.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of stuff.
Jared. So his idea was, hey, there's not a lot of fantasy settings that draw inspiration from Australia, and he's from Australia. And I'm like, that's a really good point. There's so much to draw from with Australia. And I'm like, why don't you help out with the world building and the lore of this entire continent, and then within that you'll have your region where you run your adventures in it. So he's been doing some work there.
I might hit him up then, because I have a region. Let me actually pull up the map so I make sure I'm naming my regions correctly, because if my players show up, I know they will give me flack for pronouncing the region wrong.
And by the way, I do have a better answer to your question. So this is just kind of a lead in.
Yeah, no. So I might hit him up to get some inspiration for the Dark Waste, which is it's a wasteland. It's been sucked of all life, but I could see it kind of Australian themed down there, possibly. In that area.
Do you have a Aboriginal name for it?
Not yet. That the Dark Waste is just kind of the common tongue, or what it's called.
Yeah, the way that people refer to it.
Yeah, the way they refer to it. I haven't flushed that area out. I've only flushed one area out completely. Then I have another area which is about halfway flushed out. The rest, I have just the basic points set up for it. Main.
You can send him a message on Discord. Just look for him on there, Jader. And
okay, I'll definitely do that. I'll reach out to him because
he'll probably have some useful feedback for you.
Yeah,
so
because
I've been thinking about this a lot recently. GMs starting a campaign or maybe even starting a world, because you can very quickly get way too overcomplicated. So a couple things I can say. If you want things really to flow well, it is better to not start too complicated. What you might do is, for the GM, make yourself a small map. It could be very simple. If you're feeling fancy, you can go on a map maker and make a detailed one, but it doesn't have to be. You can just take a piece of paper and a pencil and just make lines and dots and do it in super fast. So just for you, the GM, get yourself a little map going just so you have a reference of how everything is oriented. This city is here, and if you go east, there's forest, and in the forest there's this location. If you go north, there's a mountain. If you go south, there's a desert. I guess you're in a wasteland, so maybe you'd come up with other terrain features. So just a simple map for your purpose, so you can just keep yourself organized. And then what you might do is just prep enough to do one session. Like, just prep a few encounters, things that seem like, oh, these are monsters that live in this region, or these are NPCs who could be a villain or antagonist. You just basically need a small seed of something happening. You don't have to know the entire story even.
Oh yeah.
And just prepare a few encounters that fit the theme of either the location, like they fit the theme of the region, the type of landscape, the type of culture, the type of history that it has, the goings on, whatever ideas in your mind. Or if it doesn't fit the theme, it could be, you can just make it a side thing, right? Like, it could be a one-off incident that happens, like, whoa, this thief stole something from the characters. The thief doesn't have anything to do with the history or the lore of the region, but it's an incident to provoke the characters into action, and then they go off chasing the thief, and there's hijinks that occur along the way. All right, so simple map, basic map. Just prepare enough for one session, so it might be 2 encounters or something. You can grab some maps easily, some free maps off of all over the place. You can just Google it if you want.
Oh yeah, no,
And
Esper, I have that. I did send you the map on Discord, so if you want to open up, you
okay,
can also show it on stream so people can see what I'm talking about here.
there's another piece that I would I think point out to GMs, which coincides with not trying to not go overboard when you first start out. It's really not reasonable to expect the players to read much lore about your setting, and the reason for that is it's kind of a lot to ask of the players. Now, every once in a while, there is a player that they want to be able to read lore or look at maps or like kind of already start getting into your campaign setting before they've even played one session. But I wouldn't expect or obligate
Oh no.
players to do that. I would just say, okay, here are the house rules. The house rules are, whatever. Like, these are mine, for example. Long rests don't refill all your hit points.
I remember that one.
You can roll your hit dice if you want, but I have some parameters in case they're way too high or way too low.
Yeah.
If you get knocked to 0 hit points but survive, you get a level of exhaustion. It's a more serious tone, and we have fun, and maybe there can be characters that are kind of like jokester characters, but the setting itself is not a goof off setting. It's kind of a gritty, a little more serious, mature setting. Just stuff like that, like one page of house rule. I think it's reasonable for the players to have to read the house rules and kind of like the campaign setting style rules or campaign setting rules.
I agree with your house rules and stuff. You want them short. You want to make them easy to read. I did implement a new one because I didn't understand the ability one of my characters had until it actually came up in combat. They ran across a patrol, and he is the fighter, sorcerer, or wizard subclass of it, the arcane warrior or whatever it is now called.
Eldritch Knight.
And so he can resummon his sword. And I'm like, oh, that is literally going to ruin like the suspense for this encounter. So I had to tell him, okay, unfortunately, that is something I did not realize you could do completely. So I'm going to nerf it slightly. If a sword is sheathed in adamantium, you can't summon it. So, and since they ran across a group of drow, they're all level 5, so this wasn't like super overpowering, like going to kill them. It eventually turned out that they were dropping the drow literally once per turn. Like, one of them was going down every round, if not one, more than one. So they all had adamantium, but it was impure adamantium. So the guy sheathed it in a sheath instead of using it, so he couldn't summon it. Turned out he had Shadowblade instead, which is even more powerful than his normal sword. So in the end, I didn't really do anything because he had another ability he could use, but it was just like, I realized, oh, this ability I didn't really understand, and he understood why I was making this call. And he was able to work with it, but that was a call I had to make on the fly, which I did not like doing, but it was like, okay, this is kind of going to ruin how this suspense, because he had this entire cockiness. It's like, oh yeah, go ahead, take my sword. I was like, no, you're supposed to be in a situation where this is serious. The drow did not like them because they were playing, he's playing a homebrew race I actually created. That's an offshoot of the drow, so the drow do not like them, that race.
What's the name of the race?
Ashen Drow. So the lore behind it is
it's like a splintered
literally
faction
a splinter
of Drow.
Literally a splinter faction. A homebrew goddess had issues with Loth. Her and Loth were bumping heads, pretty much. All the names I've actually changed, but I'm just using the basic 5e terms. And so she gathered up a group of drow and freed them from Loth. And it was a pretty good chunk of drow. And she gave them a city, led them to a city, and she goes, you take over the city, it's yours, pretty much. they took over the city and they established the city. After several thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, they eventually kind of evolved a bit. They lost their superior dark vision and some of their magic, but they gained fire resistance and the ability to conjure flames as a cantrip.
Mm-hmm.
So I tweaked the drow a bit to make it, but they also did lose the light sensitivity because of the superior dark vision.
Mm-hmm.
If you actually were to look at the map, I could tell you exactly where they're established, which kind of makes sense.
I've got the map actually.
Yeah.
When I pull it up, it's blocking out me, but it's not blocking out you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
No worries.
if you were to look up, they're in the Embers specifically.
Okay, up in the northeast.
Yeah, the northeast. So it kind of made sense to evolve them into a more fire resistant and ashen name, thus the Ashen Elves, because they come from a land that's literally volcanic in nature, constant volcanoes eruption, lava flows.
Oh man, I saw this video the other day of a like a volcanic lightning storm. Have you seen this?
No, I have not. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Look that up later. Don't do it now. You want to do it?
No, I'll do it later.
Yeah. I see lightning as your background as well, so you might.
Well, that was from Vapor. When I was playing Vapor, it was thematic.
Yeah. So you'll probably particularly appreciate this. Watch this like when you can focus on it. I'll send you a link for this one video that I found particularly amazing. So there's this phenomenon that's volcanic lightning where the volcano's like is erupting. It's an active eruption, and there's lightning shooting out of its caldera.
Ooh.
And it's not like regular lightning that you normally see in a thunderstorm, where it's just like which can be pretty amazing already.
Oh yeah.
The bolts are super thick and they stay in the same spot for much longer. It's incredible. So it comes from the cloud that it's because of the cloud that the volcano is spewing out. There's a lot of like I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to say this wrong and people are going to like gripe at me. Well, let's just say this: a lot of the substance in the ash cloud that's coming out of it,
it's a lot more magnetized. I think
is highly ionized. That's probably not the right way to say that.
Yeah, it's ionized.
Okay,
I think it's ionized.
And so it's like it's not just the mere like atmospheric lightning. It's also the lightning, the electricity, like running through, like the current running through the like physical particles in the ashen cloud coming out of it. So that makes the lightning super intense, and it's incredible, man. When I saw this video, I thought, if these were people in like a fantasy world or a medieval world seeing this thing erupting, they would be like, oh, and like praising it like a god or a titan or something.
Yeah, they would. It would be either the god or the devil.
Yeah, and so that would have a huge impact, I would think, on their culture. So you might check that out, and maybe that will.
I'm gonna have to check that out because
a little something to add into your volcanic. Drought. So are they still subterranean?
No, they're not subterranean.
They've completely come up.
They've completely evolved from the subterranean drow. They did have to fight off. This is lore that my players already know, because two of them or actually three of them are Ashen Drow. Two of them would know, so they would know this lore of their people's history. Loth my world, the gods actually exist on the material plane. They don't exist on the separate planes. Loth led a massive army of Drow to try to capture the city to bring the Ashen back under control. Unfortunately, Lif, who is the Ashen's primary goddess, ran across Loth, and Loth kind of diverted because she hates they bump heads so much.
Sure. Is this goddess of the Ashen Drow?
Yes.
A mountain or a volcano?
She is the goddess of fire, ash, war, and rebirth.
Okay. How do you spell the name?
Lith.
Okay. So that Lith means stone. That's why I thought of mountain or volcano.
Okay, so when I was creating Lith, I was looking up Elven words for fire and ash.
Huh.
and I found one that was Lith. Now I don't
Okay.
know
I found
where
a
you're getting.
draconic site that translates English to draconic the other day, and I thought that was pretty
Ooh,
interesting.
no. So yeah, I don't remember where I found it. I would have to go dig in again.
I don't
But
think there's any official
there isn't.
language, but the people that run these sites, they try to base the words on something most of the time. So,
Yeah,
like, there probably are some official words from novels. I mean, as official as old novels can be,
yeah.
D&D kind of hits the reset button on its lore like every 10 years or so.
Yeah, I have no clue when the next reset is, but I don't remember where it came from. I just remember just looking up either Drow or Elven word for ash,
Okay.
and that's what I found Lith, and so I created
I wonder,
Lith.
yeah, I wonder if it has to do with like the ash being like a pulverized solid
I don't know.
matter,
It didn't really go into
or
detail. All I remember is
not
saying,
pulverized, but a burnt solid matter down into a.
yeah, maybe that's where they were coming from with it. All it said was Lith, translation meaning ash. So I was
Okay.
like, okay, I'm going to run with it. So
So
it
let's let me put this back onto the track of
yeah.
the generalized advice I started with, and then maybe I can start tailoring that a bit more to suit where you're at along things. So
Yeah, you don't need a tailor. It was just more just to have fun and talk with
sure.
you.
Well, I would say in general, it probably is better to really make things kind of simple for your first couple sessions, just enough to get going and have a good session. And then once the players actually play in the setting for a little bit, then they'll start investing in it and wanting to learn more about the lore and maybe read about the lore and stuff. Now, how far along are you? It sounds like you've done a number of sessions
We're
already.
done 2 sessions now.
Okay.
Our third session is going to be this Saturday. Um, so we're playing every other week on Saturdays, and we start about midday, and we just go until we're done.
Cool. Are you playing in person?
In person. This is an
I love
in-person group.
that.
As I said, they're my
Yeah.
coworkers, so we're all local, so we can
Yeah.
do in person.
I love that,
We're
man.
at one of my players' houses where we're playing right now. We actually were playing in my basement before on the first campaign,
Uh-huh.
so we actually were doing the full blown in the basement
D&D
Dungeons
nerds in
and
the basement.
Dragons.
Yeah. That's cool. Man,
Um,
I love, I mean, playing online has a lot of really cool tools that you can
well, it
make
has the
use of
tools,
nowadays.
but
But
as
in person is forever my
player,
favorite.
it's the player, the physical being at the table, watching the players go, oh, what can we do?
Yeah.
Like them whispering to each other right there, trying to figure out what they can do, especially in a combat situation.
You can also go with longer sessions in person.
Oh yeah,
If
it's
I'm in
so
person, I can. If I'm in person and we have food, I can just kind of keep going and going and going. If we're playing online, it's like it's more taxing on your brain because you're
it
having to
is.
like
Well,
not only
one of
play
the-
D&D but also run a VTT at the same time, and maybe in my case I also have to run like a Zoom
stream.
call and
Yeah,
a live stream maybe, and yeah, it's
yeah. One of the other reasons it's more of a strain is actually the screens produce light that strain your eyes.
yeah. I use a
So that's
laptop
the
when I
other
play
drain.
in person, but I'm not constantly looking at the laptop.
Yeah, I have a laptop
Yeah.
that has all my notes
Yeah,
for this
yeah.
campaign on it, and I did screw up and delete a bunch of my notes without even realizing, so I have to rebuild my Fey realms on
Oh
which
gosh.
suck.
I use Google Docs, and that keeps a record of everything on your documents. So
I
if you accidentally
would do
erase
that.
it, you can just see
I
the
would do
history.
that, but I'm doing a lot of my building when I don't have access to the internet. So it's
I
all
I think you can still compose, and it will
okay.
save it on your local. It'll save it just on your device, and then once you get connected to Wi-Fi, it saves it into your cloud, into your.
I'll
like,
take a
cloud
look at it
storage.
because the program I'm using usually does autosave. I don't know why it didn't.
Okay.
I think maybe because I accidentally opened two of the same tabs.
I'm also somewhat traumatized by losing stuff when I had a hard drive crash back in 2015, and I've become paranoid since then. And I'm like,
Oh,
I
no,
gotta
I get that.
triple back up everything now.
No, I completely get that, Esper. It was literally, I didn't realize I deleted it. I opened up another tab for whatever reason of the same of an older file, then I deleted the newer one, and so I think it autosaved the older one, overwriting what was new. which sucks.
By the way, sorry, this is completely not related to what we're talking about. Anyone who's commenting, for some reason the comments aren't showing up for me on OBS. So
I can see them. So what?
Yeah,
we did have a couple questions.
What I might do is I'll log into my YouTube here. I'm gonna have to like quickly mute it. So we're gonna have just a moment here where you're gonna hear a weird audio effect.
So I'm gonna respond to someone who just posted something. Ratch, or actually I don't know when you posted it. Yeah, one of my players' husband I was talking to, who also runs games,
you know what I might
made the exact same comment. I know, I didn't mean to do that. No, I will not say they're edgy or drow though. Lord Mortis.
All right, I can now see comments.
There was a question for you earlier. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here we go.
I just realized that OBS wasn't showing me any comments. I don't know what happened there.
So, Esper, there was a question directed to you.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on writing cultures and magic in a dark fantasy campaign?
Okay, so dark fantasy. You really need to decide what you mean by dark fantasy. It could just mean that it's just an aesthetic, right? Things just look more gothic, more serious, more shadowy, maybe more gruesome and gory. Or it could be dark fantasy in that you actually approach dark topics. And I mean, that's going to be really between you and your gaming group. What is everybody okay with? What are you comfortable with? I generally run things at like essentially rated R, to put it in like American movie rating terms. I wouldn't say every single scene is rated R. There's plenty that are PG or PG-13, but in general, it does go as far as R. I don't usually go any farther than that. I don't go into anything that's like, like graphic sex or graphic torture or something like that. I'll kind of be more tasteful or use some kind of discretion when it comes to those things. All right, so you've made your decision. I don't want just the dark fantasy aesthetic only, but I also want the topics, and my players are okay with mature topics, right? So you're going to be dealing with really adult topics, and so a good place to start from there is history, and history's amazing. I think a lot of people that play D&D like history. I don't know if I've ever met a D&D player that isn't at least somewhat into...
I pull from history all the time.
Yeah, I think most people that are into D&D at least are into a little bit of history. I mean, maybe not an expert or anything, but they'll still maybe watch some cool historical videos on YouTube sometimes or something. So yeah, you can draw from history, you can draw from real life, you can draw from current events with caution. I would really caution people from this is just my personal opinion. I don't like the game to feel too modern. If it starts feeling like we're just people in the modern world talking like modern people, then it starts kind of like hurting my that sense of being immersed into a world of imagination and like this old world of like ancient kingdoms and fallen empires and things like that. It starts feeling more just like we're just kind of whatever, just modern people hanging out playing a cosplay or something, or you're just chatting with your friends, just BSing while playing Magic the Gathering or something. So yeah, you'll want to draw from that, and I guess I probably won't go into too many details, but is whatever you're, I almost said whatever you're comfortable with. I'd go just go a little bit beyond the edge of what you're comfortable with. Don't do anything too like extreme where you're gonna have nightmares and have a mental breakdown or something. But you want a dark fantasy, if you really want to go into it, you're gonna push the envelope. You're gonna go a little bit past your comfort zone, and it's gonna be a little scary at times. The upside to that, though, is that when you do that in a kind of controlled, safe environment where you're with friends and it's just a game and a simulation, that's actually beneficial, like psychologically speaking, because when you face fears, or you face things that you're uncomfortable with, and you don't ignore them or repress them, you get a little stronger and a little braver and a little bit better to face whatever it might be. I'm trying to think if I can give a good example here. Okay, so this maybe not as a good example, but it is an example. When my son was first born, and he was really little, I had this fear that I might drop him. I think that's a pretty common fear. I think especially for dads, for guys. So it just gave me that like jittery feeling, and I hated the thoughts of it. And then one day I thought, you know what? I'm sick of feeling like this. So I'm gonna make myself just sit down, and I'm gonna close my eyes, and I'm just gonna let the thoughts come. They're kind of intrusive thoughts. I'm just gonna let them come. I'm gonna let them come. I'm just gonna watch the damn thing as if it were like a horror movie or something, and whatever. Just bring it on. And so I watched it kind of play out, and there was this scene of me like dropping my son. It's like totally exaggerated, like off of some high balcony, and it's just so dramatic, and it was really terrible. I felt awful. It was not pleasant at all. But then I was like, okay, it passed. Now let's play that again, and this time I'm going to like actively envision myself doing something, like proactively doing something to avoid that situation from happening. And so I envision myself like, okay, I'm holding him in a good, secure way, right? And I'm making sure he doesn't fall. And if it feels like, oh, the ground's unstable, I just hold him a little bit closer. So that I did that exercise a few times, and I got over that nervousness. I never felt nervous again. And my daughter was born, I've never felt nervous holding her. And I tried that technique with various things. So again, it's maybe not the best example because we're talking about RPG stuff, but it's that same thing in action, right? It's like you're there with your friends, and you're all kind of like a team together. Even if you fight each other out of character, you as real life people are kind of, you've got that camaraderie, and like you face whatever that scary thing is, and then you get a little bit braver. I think that's why people like the horror genre to begin with. Like why
it is.
Why is horror even a genre? Who wants to see people getting like they're like cut in half or terrible body horror stuff?
Esper, part of it is twisted personality, twisted sense of humor.
Yeah, there's that as
Some
well.
people just but I was going to add on,
dark humor can be hilarious.
Yes, I was going to add on for that. If you want to look for this, is because this was from Bertie Sanders. If you want to look into dark and fantasy, I would check out the Dresden Files. They're a bit on the darker side with their topics.
But they have some doses of humor in there too.
They do have humor, so that's why I would recommend that one. It's again, the author goes into darker topics, but if you want to go more of a grim dark, you might check out the 40K stuff. You don't have to go buy books; just go watch the lore and stuff, and you kind of get an idea. It can get really grim and very dark in fantasy. While technically 40K is a sci-fi, it still would give you an example of what a grim dark world is like.
It's kind of a sci-fi fantasy, right?
Yeah, it's more of they do have a magic system.
Yeah,
quotations of magic,
and it's more of the softer sci-fi, not the hard sci-fi where you're like
it's not a hard sci-fi. It's a very
to use
soft
actual math and science to back it up. So
as I was saying, this is just a recommendation of if you want to look at what a more darker fantasy might look like. Dresden Files is more on the lighter side, because it does have a good chunks of humor every so often. Where I want to say the actually earlier 40K stuff, the more recent stuff from my understanding, is not as grim dark as it used to be. So some of the more older 40K stuff, look into that.
That's what I've heard. I am really an outsider with the Warhammer universe. My knowledge and experience with it is quite limited, though I do have some friends with knowledge of it.
I enjoy the lore. I'm not getting into the tabletop or anything like that. I personally enjoy the lore. I have a couple games that I actually have never finished. again, I think the lore is kind of unique because again, it's a grim dark where
Yeah.
there is no good guy. Everyone loses.
Yeah.
Humanity is not succeeding.
It's more
They're
like it's more
dying.
like law versus chaos. That's really the more the main conflict. And then
I would
everyone
say it's more chaos versus chaos.
is it chaos versus chaos? But what about the Space
Yeah,
Marines?
because
Aren't they law and order?
no, humanity is corrupt.
Well, they could be corrupt. It could be corrupt order or corrupt law.
No, like your lowest person, they have a life expectancy of like I want to say it was like 40 years because of how horrible their living conditions are. I you some of the worlds that you can grow up on are literally called death worlds because of how horrible the conditioning is. And
well,
no
like
one
I said,
does
I
anything
am
to try to improve.
I am a I wouldn't even consider myself a novice. I'm like pre novice with Warhammer, so my knowledge of it is extremely limited.
Yeah.
Monstrous Heroes, I would say, is fairly dark fantasy. It's, I mean, look at the cover.
Oh yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. If you read in there, but I haven't touched it.
There's some pretty gritty stuff in there, both aesthetically and subject matter wise. And there's a settings, like a campaign settings and plot section at the very end. It's the final section, and it goes into some lore about my world of Ikoros, and you'll see in there's talks about slavery, for example, or weapons of mass destruction, magical weapons of mass destruction. There are some short stories in here that they get pretty gruesome. Again, I don't really go past an R rating, but it's overall a more mature and darker. There's the light side as well too, right? There's the brindle cap that's like this fey trickster, and there's an angelic monster race that you can hardly even call it a monster. It's a celestial being of light. So I like having it all in there. For me, I like it to be the whole picture, the dark and the light. I'm okay with mature topics. I try to approach them in a mature way. I like history. I like culture. I like deep topics. I like a little bit of that grit, that risk, where you really feel like something's on the line and you're really fighting to achieve a hard-won victory. So let's get back to your campaign. So you've run a couple sessions.
Yeah.
Would you say that at this point you as the world builder feel like, oh, this is too cumbersome, it's overwhelming? Are you getting any of those kinds of sensations?
So this is actually part of a larger world. My first campaign I ran was in another part of this world, and that I maybe felt a little more overwhelming because I was such inexperienced as DM. I didn't even have much experience as a player, so this was all very new to me, trying to do all this stuff. Now, as I have more experience as being a DM, the experience of being a player, I have the viewpoints I can pull from past experiences. I have people I can now reach out, like to you, because I've reached out to you a couple times on advice on something. I actually did it a couple months ago. I asked you on something. I don't remember what it was. I wanted to get some advice on something because I wanted to check something or another for world building. So for me, I don't feel cumbersome by it. I enjoy, but this is also me. I enjoy the world building portion of it. I love creating the lore. The first time I ran this camp,
so you're feeling the inspiration, right?
I feel the inspiration.
You're feeling motivated. Okay, that's a good sign.
I'm feeling motivated.
So,
I even
notes, man.
Lore drops.
No,
sorry, real quick.
Okay.
I've done lore drops of stuff that I have not planned for, did not even have lore written up. Yeah. I just like, oh, you know what? Screw it. I'll come up with something on the fly for what the history of something is, because it was a random thing they found.
If you're in that flow where you're feeling like the fire, let's say, and you can improvise stuff's popping into your head in the middle of running the session, those are all good signs. So notes are very, very helpful as organized as you can be. Again, I like Google Docs. I like organizing things with the folders. I use the actual docs like Word docs, and then also spreadsheets as well. Man, yeah, I can't emphasize enough making things as organized and as practical as possible. Whether you are making notes about a region, you're making notes about NPCs, you're making notes about like what's in each room in a dungeon or in locations on an adventure, as tight as you can get your notes, the better. Something I try to keep in mind when I'm writing my notes is, how will this read in the middle of a session? How will this read in the middle of a combat encounter where, I can't sit here and read like a whole page of notes, or I forget, like, oh wait, it wasn't on this document, what document it was on. I mean, that's going to happen regardless. That happens to me still, even as much as I prioritize organization. So as much as you can minimize that, and like,
oh yeah,
like what I like to, this is just one example, what I like to do with a dungeon room, I'll say like, I'll trim off all the extra words. It'll just be like, wooden door, period, unlocked, period, to, or connects to area something, or
oh yeah,
stone door, period, lock, DC 15. Now, you can't always do that, right? Sometimes you do need to write like a paragraph or two, and that's fine. You don't have to always just make every single thing this super bullet point tight shorthand, but I would just be mindful. Like, okay, if I'm gonna write like 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs, it needs to like really be something like a special thing. This can't be like every single thing that I note down. For an NPC, I do like name, male, female, race, alignment, and then maybe a few other notes like baker, cook, let's say, cook, big nose, and maybe the location that they're at, something in.
I have, for my NPCs, when I have to create an NPC, I know they're gonna be interacting with a lot more. I will, especially if it's a big point one, I will flush them out. But for like a simple one, I usually do name, race, age, and occupation.
Yeah, stuff like that.
That's all I need, especially for like if it's a simple shopkeeper they're gonna run into. Oh yeah, this is blah 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 blah. He's a dwarf, male, and is a blacksmith. Stereotypical, but yeah, just for example, I enter all that in, so that way and the name of his shop, so if they go back to the shop, hey, here's the guy. Oh, they're going back to the shop? Wait, let me check my NPCs. I think I might have done something with it. Oh yeah, you run into blah 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 again. He's now, instead of working on that breastplate that he's now working on a greatsword. Because it's been several months since you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
He's finished with that project. He's now on a new project. So yeah, I do keep my simple notes. My random encounter thing, I've actually started adding notes to it of how the encounters went. Hey, was this a good encounter? Yes. Was this a bad encounter? Yes. What can I do to improve on it?
I'll send you a couple random encounter tables after the call. I've got a PDF of a spreadsheet. Technically it's multiple spreadsheets, and I'll send that to you, and it has random encounters for different types of regions, and it also has this table at the top, which is like 100 different encounter circumstances. So you could use that table as well, either when you're preparing an encounter to set up like, what's actually going on at the start of this encounter? Are the monsters doing something in particular? Because there could be all kinds of interesting things at the beginning of an encounter, like maybe the monsters are building a lair. Maybe one of them is cursed. Maybe one has this strange item that it's experimenting with. Maybe maybe they're running away from a stronger monster. There could be all kinds of, particulars about an encounter. Or you can roll that randomly if you really want. You can not only randomly roll what the encounter is, but also randomly roll the circumstances of the encounter. So random encounter tables help a lot for improvising and building stuff on the fly. I like making random magic tables as well. I'm sorry, random item tables, which some of them would be magic items. I can send you those as well too.
That is my next thing for like random tables and stuff. Is I would like to create a couple random item tables for stuff they can find.
I'll shoot you the PDF. It has a number of different random item tables.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Because even if I don't use it, I can pull inspiration from it.
Yeah.
Because but the reason I had to create this random encounter table was the environment doesn't already have a random table for it. I have gone looking. I couldn't find a random table for this type of environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to create a random table. And then I remember from, I want to say Dreams of Nightmare. That was where we fought the Adamantium Golem, right? Was in Dreams of Nightmare.
Yeah.
You told us we rolled a 2 on the table, which was like the second to worst thing. So I kind of took inspiration from that. I put like the 2 worst things they could run into as 1 and 2, and the 2 best things as 99 and 100.
Really?
And then everything else is just random in the middle.
Okay. The way I actually normally do it is the weakest monsters go first, as in like result of a 1 is the weakest, all the way up to 100.
I went the opposite of you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
When I do like just random DM rolls, that's also what I do. So whenever I want to randomly determine anything, it could be anything. What's the weather like? What's the morale of this NPC? How much does this item cost, etc. Anything that can be randomized. I'll roll my DM D20 of fate, and the 1 is the easiest or least challenging or most beneficial for the players, all the way up to the 20 being the hardest or the most challenging or the worst for the players, and then everything in between, the whole spectrum in between.
Yeah,
just like how a higher DC is harder to hit and a lower DC is easier to hit.
I went the opposite direction. I went lower in the number, at least for some of them the worst. But I did kind of I did try to make it as you went higher up the better it went, but there were still a few upper ones that could be bad, but they weren't super bad. I think I had one encounter that was up in the upper areas, was you run across a grave robber. So, hey, that could turn bad.
Yeah. And do you have some encounters on there that aren't necessarily fight?
Combat? Yeah, well, yeah, I have several. If you want, I can tell you a few of them.
Yeah, sure.
Give me a second, and I'll pull up the
I think that's really cool. Or even if it is a monster, still, it doesn't have to just be like the monster is like a kamikaze and has to attack you every time. I've had plenty of encounters where I have the monster in the distance and the monster's like looking at the party, and it's like, there are 4 of you armed to the teeth. I'm just gonna watch you. Or maybe it's an intelligent monster and it's like in hiding, sizing up the party. And not every monster has to just jump out and try to rush in and mangle the characters.
Okay, so a fun one that I created was they come across a group of kobolds worshipping a large rock that looks like a dragon.
Nice. See, there you go. You've got a cool circumstance going on.
Yeah, so the thing is, they can enter this scenario in several different ways. They can walk around it, they can intervene, or they can attack. It's all up to them. Like the last encounter they I rolled was they ran across this group of drow. They could have tried to talk their way out. It was going to be a very difficult DC because, again, drow don't like the ashen. But there are certain encounters where they have to fight. There's no option.
Sure.
Like, their very first encounter was in a rage fire elemental.
Yeah.
I actually nearly dropped a player.
What level are they?
They're level 5. Was one
Okay.
fire elemental.
Yeah.
Now
Sure.
again, I had him going after the one spellcaster who dropped a tidal wave on it, so it kind of
Yeah.
focused him
Yeah. Yeah.
because it registered this as the biggest threat to it. And I realized about 3/4 away from the encounter, I wasn't doing something with the monster that it was able to do. I'm like, oh, I would have dropped my player if I were to actually do that. So I did not realize I did that, but it was something that was an encounter where there was no option. They would have had to fight.
I have a couple other pieces of advice, or I guess maybe it's one piece
Sure.
of advice with 2 subpoints regarding random encounters. So this is just something that I've deduced from my years of running games. So when you're making your random encounters, it's also good to keep in mind how you're going to run your random encounters. So the two best ways that I have found to run random encounters are either A, completely theater of the mind, something where you can just start the fight like that.
Yeah, that
Like,
was this last
like
encounter.
literally, you roll on your table. I'll just say the fire elemental. It's a fire elemental. You know, a blazing shape rises up out of a lava pool in the vaguest of humanoid forms possible, and rushes towards you. Roll for initiative, take down the initiatives, and just start right then and there. No battle map, no minis, just get it going immediately. Something about stopping and like halting and pausing the session to do a random encounter makes them feel like bogging down the main game.
Yeah.
Or point B, you actually prepare in advance battle maps, miniatures. Now that's going to take more prep time on your behalf. But what you can
My
do,
players have minis.
okay, what you can do is you can prep like, so this is in person, right? You can prep, these are the random encounter minis. I know on my random encounter table I have fire elemental, whatever, white, some kind of wyvern, etc. You get all of those minis already in an
I'm already
organizer.
prepping for one of my
There
encounters.
you go. All right, they're already in an organizer.
It's going to end up being a red dragon, a young adult red dragon. So I'm already working on a random encounter mini. So yeah,
And you get
the
battle
first
maps
encounter-
ready to go as well. You want to get whatever they are, however you do battle maps.
So
Or if you can just super simple it like a vinyl gridded chess X battle map and just, all right guys, that's a big rock, there's a pit, and there's a lava pool.
That's what I have.
And just super simple. What you want to avoid with random encounters is making them feel like they're bogging down the game. They should feel like this is part of the flow of our mainline adventure. If it feels like, all right guys, sorry, we're putting our cool adventure on pause, and now we're going to do this like annoying bogged down thing that I got to prep like 5-10 minutes just to get it running, that it starts to make people not like, especially I think you as the GM, makes you start not liking
I
random
hate
encounters.
When I do my random encounters, I will roll for it to see if they run into something. I'm checking in while I'm trying to check and then run the game at the same time. If I have a monster encounter, I will, as I'm still doing their thing, I kind of try to get them into a little bit of role playing between themselves, so I can quickly look up the monster stat. So that way I'm ready, and then I'll leave the game a little bit further before I have the encounter happen. So it's not something where I'm deliberately pausing the game. I'm kind of wanting it to feel more naturally happening.
You'll find what works best for you as you play more and more. And I mean, I would say it's an ongoing thing as a GM. So you'll find your kind of your own tips and tricks, right? Your own way to get things kicked off. But those are probably the two best things I could say in terms of actually implementing random encounters. Either theater of the mind it, just get it going right away. Just roll initiative. You probably don't even have the monster's hit points written down yet. That's fine. You can take note of a monster's hit point while a player is taking a minute to decide what spell they're going to cast.
In fact, all my players
prepare for random encounters. Like you prepare for the plan for the unexpected or expect the unexpected.
Yeah, there's only a couple encounters that I have on this table where I would have to draw a map, only because the only way they could survive it is to be strategic.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 monsters which I am positive will straight up party wipe them if they try to go fight it head on. Even if they try to fight it strategically, it will party wipe them.
Mm-hmm.
They have to retreat and get out of there strategically. And even then, I don't think all of them are going to get out of there. Just because, especially one of them, how powerful it is. I don't want to say because I don't want to ruin that surprise.
Sure. So I also love, as you already know, including some encounters on the random encounter table that are too difficult for the players for the characters
I
to
can
handle.
vouch for that.
Yeah.
What happened to Drake fell?
Yeah.
But now, to be fair,
however,
he did get that golem to burn of legendary resistance. I will take that as a win.
That's something. That is something. That
I still remember that.
Oh, it was an unforgettable
Yes, Mortis,
scene.
the Drow don't like anyone, but the Ashen Elves, as we would call them in game, they straight up hate them simply because they left what is Loth, pretty much.
What I would...
Sorry, I have the chat.
Okay.
I'm looking at the chat.
The one caveat for having very powerful monsters on a random encounter table is that you want to make sure to never force the characters into an impossible fight. As here's this monster that you can't beat and you have no choice. You have to get killed by it. You can't try to run. You can't try to negotiate. You can't use some trick. You can't do some kind of skill encounter. Now, I'm not talking about the players choosing, let's just go ahead and try to fight this, or let's test the waters for a couple rounds. Okay, that's not forcing them. The players made that choice. I'm talking about the thing lands right in front of you and it's grabbed you up, and the Kraken has you in its tentacles. You haven't even had any chance to you have no agency at all.
No, the one encounter where I'm worried that would be a true party wipe no matter what. There are ways to get out of it. I don't plan on forcing it into being something where they have to fight and die.
Or as a final thing you could do is the character gets killed or maybe just knocked out in the fight, but then later has a chance to get rescued. Escape or get rescued.
Yeah.
I would just communicate that to the players, just so they know, guys, I'm not here to screw you over. All right, it is going to be a very difficult campaign at some moments, and it's going to be an uncertain outcome. I'm not here to screw you over.
I told my players the very first session, so session 0, I run my encounters usually on the more deadlier side. So I try to give my players a little extra advantage by when they roll stats. Any ones, the first time a 1 comes up, you can re-roll it once on the stat roll.
Okay, you're kind of helping the characters to be a little extra stronger.
Give them a little extra chance of surviving, because again, I like giving them deadlier encounters because it, as you said, it gives that little more life or death, a little more feel of you got to work for it.
Are you using that same house rule that I do, where the long rest doesn't recover your hit points?
No, I'm not doing that one.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, I do like it. But because I have a couple players who are still trying to get their foot back into D&D, I feel it's a little it would be too hard for them
Okay.
as right now.
Well, I'll say
Maybe
this: since your random encounters tend to be on the harder side, things should probably work out okay then.
Oh yeah, no.
The reason I'm saying that is because random encounters plus recovering all your hit points for free on a long rest can get a little odd because it's this is our one encounter for the day, so let's just blow everything we have and we're just right back to full as soon as we sleep.
Yeah, I get that, Esper, and it's something I'm acutely aware of. It's something I would like to do something similar to that down the line. But I have 2 players right now who they have experience, but they're very rusty, and so I'm treating them not to be mean or anything as new players.
Sure.
Because I want to make sure they are comfortable and get used to how I play before because again, I like that rule. Now again, to be fair, Vapor did have a cheat code for that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, he did have a cheat code for that one. I was able to get around that one.
Yeah. Well, he kind of paid the price for that cheat code.
He paid the price for it by dropping nearly dying in the first 2 sessions.
Yeah.
And
he went on with fire vulnerability for quite a while.
The acid vulnerability never came up, only the fire one.
Yeah, that's
so we got rid of that.
Yeah.
So there was a price to it, but I'm just saying, Vapor never really suffered from long rest not healing everything up. So.
Oh, there's another thing I want to mention about
sure.
It's kind of related to random encounters, but it's more than just that. So I recently switched to a different XP system, and I like the way that...
You're not doing milestones anymore?
I'm not doing milestones anymore.
Oh.
So, yeah. So let me see if I can quickly summarize this. So it is an XP system, as in like the standard 5th edition XP system. When you gain your different levels are those same XP amounts. However, you don't gain XP like per individual monster or per individual threat that you overcome. That's not how you gain the XP. You gain the XP based upon accomplishing your adventure goals. So let's say the adventure goal is, recover the dragon's egg from this dungeon. There's a dragon's egg in this dungeon, so you need to get in there, get the dragon's egg, and bring it back to whatever the NPC or whatever your reason for getting the dragon's egg is. If you accomplish that, you get this amount of XP. So I have this table. This is a spreadsheet essentially that says what level is the adventure, and is it a sparse adventure where you don't really have very many encounters? Is it a medium, just like a regular adventure that has a regular number of encounters, or is it a high density where it has like more encounters than you would normally have in an adventure? So basically you have like low, medium, high for each level of adventure, and like a one shot would probably always be the low, the sparse one too. And so it actually still kind of works out at the same level up pace as always, but the DM never has to do this like nitty gritty math of like, okay, this monster was worth this amount of XP and this monster was worth that amount of XP. And the random encounters don't screw with the rate of the character's progression, because it's not like, oh dang, on the way to the dungeon they had 3 random encounters, so they got all this XP for these random encounters and they're gonna level up halfway through the dungeon. I didn't anticipate that. It all that is done away with. So all you do is just
that?
I will, yeah.
Because
all you have to do is just at the end of the adventure.
I'm liking that a lot more.
Yeah, the milestones are pretty cool, but this is even. I like this even better, because literally all you have to do as the GM is say, okay, there's a 5th level party. I'm running a 5th level adventure, and it's just a normal adventure, just a medium amount of encounters, right? An adventure will probably have like 6 to 10 if they're medium or hard. If they're deadly encounters, they'll have not quite as many, right? Just the regular D&D guidelines. So you just say 5th level, medium, it's each character gets this amount of XP. Done. They succeed on the adventure, they get that XP. And you can also make a call if they didn't succeed, like they didn't get the dragon's egg, but they still like came up against the threats and more or less survived it, you give them half the XP. Like I had a group recently that they did like their very first session, right? Their level 1 characters, their first session, they didn't succeed in the adventure, but they still went through the dungeon and for the most part survived it. One character didn't. So they got half the XP. It's like you partially succeeded at the adventure.
Kind of like Miramore's first dungeon that we went into. We lost 2 players. We didn't succeed.
Yeah.
But 2 of us got out.
Yeah. So the goal for this dungeon is you need to find your treasure. It's kind of a mystical location, and each character finds his own treasure. He chooses, really. There's like a trilemma, right? 3 doors. Which door do you choose? And there's a treasure behind each door, but depending upon which door you choose, it's either a treasure based in money, a treasure based in magic, like a very minor magical thing, or a deeper level of the dungeon where you go down to a deeper level and you try to take on an encounter against something that could potentially be too strong for you, but the treasure you find is even greater. Unfortunately, the characters didn't make it to their treasures. They didn't get the treasure. Yeah, and one of them didn't make it out. He got roasted. So
ooh,
yeah. Oh, he got roasted pretty bad. So, but they still got half the XP, and they can keep playing. They can try again. So yeah, I put that actually in a recent newsletter, but I'll send it to you directly as well.
Yeah, I'll have to.
Man, it's so nice for the random encounters now, because now the random encounter is now not this extra road bump in the way to the adventure. It is just part of the adventure, and it also takes the pressure off of the players to always feel like we have to kill everything to level up our characters. They could use any tactics now, right? I mean, you could always use any tactics. That's true.
Oh yeah, but that's the fun of D&D.
Right. That's always been in there.
It's that option. I just realized what my screen name on Zoom is. It's still Mega's Fate 4.
Yeah.
I just realized that. Sorry. But yeah, you have the option of going out there and taking all your starting gold and buying as many goats as you can to start a goat cheese farm and just rake in more gold than you would ever adventuring. You can do that. You have that option. Sure, you're going to upset and piss off the DM for doing something like that, but you can do that.
Your character spends the next 3 months working his ass off trying to get his goat cheese farm operations underway. Now everybody else on to the dungeon.
Yeah, you have that option. You can choose what your character's backstory is. Now, again, I do have rules of I don't want the dead parents or they can't be in danger. That's my big rule on the backstories. You cannot have any immediate family members who are in danger or dead. I am tired of the dead parent trope. It gets boring. It's overused. No edgelords in the corner, guys. You have to have a legitimate reason to going on in this adventure. Not because you're getting revenge for your parents. It's been overdone. I can go read a book for that one. But yeah, that is actually one of my rules on their backstories. You cannot have a dead parent or one that is in danger. They have to be alive, healthy, and whole.
That way later you can use them as hostages.
Yes! Yes, I want to use them. I actually have a player who I have plans because of their backstory that I can use because their parents are alive and healthy. Yay! It's something that, nice. And again, I think as the DM, anything I can use also to create a personal plot for these my players, I want.
Yeah.
Sure, the endangered parent is a great plot hook, but it's an overused trope.
Yeah.
Let me do the parents who are maybe disappointed that their child did not follow in the footsteps they wanted,
Mm-hmm.
or they have a parents who are super proud that their child is out trying to do something for themselves outside of the measly living that they had.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much more you can do with a parent who is alive and not in danger. There is so much more with that you can do, I feel, instead of just doing the, oh, my parents are dead, so I want to get revenge. Oh, I need to go save my parents or loved one or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or
Yeah. Sure.
I ran
Whatever.
away.
I've heard that several hundred different times and so many different things.
Yeah.
Let's do
I
something
ran
different.
away.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a common one too.
Actually, I have a player whose backstory is they did run away because they ran as a child. They met at an adventuring party. They liked. They thought what this party was doing was super cool, so they ran away to follow the adventuring party. And now they're in this new party. So it's that I really like. So there's issues when they ever go if they ever go back home. There's going to be issues because the player's character did not follow what the parents want. So there's some fun there.
There's a lot
that
you can
play
work.
with.
Yeah, there's a lot you can work with.
Oh yeah.
With that.
But I would not have had those options if the parents were dead or in danger.
Yeah, and once the like the player's investment into the character develops, and you get to actually see the parents, that makes the stakes have some weight to them once there is a danger later.
Oh, yeah.
This is kind of an example of this. My favorite of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is Fellowship of the Ring by a long shot. Both the books and the movie, but I think it's especially so in the movies. And part of the reason for that is we get to see so much of Hobbiton and the hobbits at the beginning, and you get to invest in them and see why they do the things they do, why they care about what they care about. We get to care about them. We get to really see what's at stake. We get to see some of that with the people of Rohan in Two Towers, and
oh yeah,
with the.
But you really see, I do know what you're talking about with in the movies, because I remember watching those movies. I will honestly admit I have not read the books. Shoot me, take my nerd and geek card away, sure, whatever. I will be honest on that. But yeah, I remember seeing that in the movies. Yeah, there's this stake here that their peaceful life is going to be gone and destroyed.
Yeah, we get to see
Frodo
some of,
doesn't go on this journey.
We get to see some of Gondor in the third act of the trilogy, but less so. I mean, who in Gondor do you really care about or even know? I mean, there's a few, right? There's the steward of Gondor and Fafnir, Boromir's younger brother.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a little bit. It's nothing compared to the hobbits. The hobbits are so endearing, and not exactly because they are hobbits. They could have been humans, they could have been elves, they could have been dwarves, but you get to see what's at stake. You get to see the actual lives that are going to get destroyed if the forces of Sauron
I think with the movies, I don't know about the books, I know with the movies, when you get to Rohan, you're already seeing the damage being caused. They're already in a state of warlike state.
Yeah, I'd say Rohan is kind of a balance. It's not as much of a investment and setting the stakes as with Hobbiton, but it is a decent amount. I mean, there's some great
same with Minister not Ministera,
Theoden and
the other big city that they go to, a big area. It's already at war, so the stakes
Gondor
are already high. The stakes are whatever. We're at war, sure. It's not where you're coming into an area. You need to help save this area. You need to help save it by doing this. The stakes aren't there. They're there, but you don't feel or see them as much because
there are other reasons why I like Fellowship the best of the three, and I could go on into those, but let's why don't we shift into like a final bit here, and let's
Sure.
keep this with your campaign. What issues have you been coming up against, or some problem, or some challenge, or some sticking point? What's something that you're like, something is not
Right
working the way I would
now,
like?
I can already know. My first issue I think I'm going to run into is trying to get the party to truly feel like a party. Now, again, this is the second session in,
Mm-hmm.
so I know this is going to probably take a little bit more time um to do, but I have one player whose character wants to go do their personal story. And I get they want to do that because they don't have a reason to interact with the rest of the party. The party's just kind of there. So I'm trying to figure out how can I pull this in. And then the other issue I have is this player unfortunately is not going to be able to make this current session coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I know that going in advance, so it's going to push off them trying to interact more a little bit, which kind of is a problem. But I always told them, hey, your personal lives come first. If you have to do something outside of the game, like a family event or something like that, go do that at a family event. I would like to have you guys at the table, would have wished you guys to be at the table, but I
Sure.
understand.
Yeah, yeah.
So I get this player's got stuff they got to go do this coming weekend, so they can't be here. And we don't want to push the game off. So, and they've said, just go ahead, play without us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to play. It's not, so I'm, any interaction this player's character is going to have with the other characters is going to be pushed off.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that is right now my big issue, I feel. But at the same time, it's not an issue where I don't think I can fix. I think this is an issue that will fix itself as they play more and the characters interact more.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's something that I need to go, oh shoot, my party is going to split because of this issue.
If you guys are playing regularly once every 2 weeks, and you're putting enthusiasm into it, and the players are putting some amount of enthusiasm, then over time, naturally, the camaraderie and the cohesion will develop in different sorts of ways. Now, there are some things you can do to take that to the next level, and one of them, I believe you mentioned it briefly, which is having a adventure or a session or a chapter of the campaign that focuses in on the personal story of one of the characters.
Yeah.
I've done that before in some of my campaigns, even some of the campaigns that you've played in. And
a Vapor going back to his home, where he grew up.
And usually it has a fantastic effect. So I think you said that that character is the one who's a bit of an outlier of the party, like the one who's the most different or least connected.
Not so much different is, according to my player, doesn't have a real strong reason to stick with the party.
Gotcha.
So
okay. So
to give a little bit, I'm trying to figure out how I can explain it without giving away that backstory.
That's fine. That's fine. I can give you a general suggestion, and we can go from there. You might like this. So, prepare. I would say prepare an adventure. I think more than just one single session will really help. So prepare an adventure where it focuses in some way on that character. Maybe it goes to a location that the character has a personal connection to, grew up there, trained there. I don't know. There's all kinds of different ways it could go. The actual location has some kind of connection to that character, and not just the physical location, but an NPC or multiple NPCs at that location also have a connection to the character, and the conflict of the adventure is some way related to that character. So basically, that character is the nexus or the star, right, that around which the action and the plot is centered, is driving. And in addition to that, write in some scenes or some encounters, some dangers where the main character, let's call him, cannot overcome it alone, or will have a very difficult time overcoming it with just his abilities. But one of the other characters, or a couple of the other characters, have abilities or a spell or something that would be very useful and helpful to overcome those particular challenges. So it's like they're rewarded even more so for working together. I mean, there's already rewards for working together, but like you've written it to where it's like, okay, so the main character is rock, this threat is paper, but the other character in the party is scissors.
So working together, they can
okay. Rock and scissors pair together to overcome the paper challenge. That's kind of a dumb way of putting it, but
no, it actually makes sense, and I can see what you're saying, and I'm already getting a couple ideas just by you telling me stuff, what I can possibly do. I already have ideas of what I can possibly do to kind of maybe make that work.
So what happens, hopefully, is that your whole party kicks off on an adventure. Cool, we're all on an adventure. That's nice for everyone, and we get to look a more of a look into who is this. I'm just gonna say main character. Who is this main character of the party for this adventure, and where is he from, and what's important to him, and what are these NPCs and places that he's related to, and what is this challenge? Is it some rival from his backstory? Is it some creature that plagued his people or his village long ago? Is it something that he accidentally unleashed previously? There's some kind of connection with the central antagonist or central threat, the conflict of the adventure, and relying upon not only the main character but the other party members to help him overcome something that really would be very difficult if you only relied upon, let's say he's a storm sorcerer, right? And he has a rival who knows he's a storm sorcerer and specifically, has some lightning resistance or some kind of, has a spell that, he casts.
Something that negate something.
Yeah.
That we can. Yeah.
Or the main character's a swordsman, right? Like a berserker, a barbarian, or a fighter. Well, the foe is very mobile, whether it's another warrior type or a magic user who can fly or teleport or use areas of darkness, or maybe it's a monster, right? Like a monstrosity thing, and the main character can't damage it very well, or it's immune to one of the main conditions, like I don't know if it's a character that uses sleep effects or a paralysis effect, but the other characters and what they can do. The other character who's got, I don't know what it might be, an artificer who makes this one kind of magic item which is particularly effective against this villain NPC or antagonist monster, and so they help each other. The characters help each other through this very dangerous moment, and the rewards and the conflict is connected story-wise to the one character. That can really give a great boost to the connectedness, the team building.
Yeah. No, I'm already got a couple ideas of what I might do. I'll put them down to paper. Again, I don't want to say anything in case any of my players are listening. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is definitely something that I have ideas of what I can do. But yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, so it's
yeah, go ahead.
this is definitely I planned mostly for this to just like talk about different campaigns and running campaigns, and you're giving me advice. I was not planning for that, so thank you.
Nice. Yeah, so I would say you're already heading in a good direction. I think overall, you seem to be doing well in the campaign. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep a maybe extra eye on the practicality and efficiency of your notes, so that you're as well organized as possible. Random encounter or just random tables in general are fantastic for improvising stuff. I'll send you some of those.
That is something I've learned. One of my favorite encounters I've actually done was off a random table. I want to say this was my first. It was a restart of my first campaign. I had Adam, Worcester, and Nick also in it.
Okay.
And we had one of Worcester's friends at the time join us, and I think it was yeah. And what it was some random person runs up to the party and goes, "Here, take this child," and then runs off. Literally is what the encounter was. And it led to something completely else, where they ended up, because Worcester's character was friends to the royal family, so they left the child with the royal family, and they're trying to figure out who this child is and who this child belongs to. And so there was this subplot before that campaign ended.
Yeah, and the lightning of inspiration strikes you just right then and there in the moment.
Yeah, but that wasn't my plan. That was the player's plan.
Yeah.
They enjoyed the entire encounter, and then I had another encounter from that campaign, because I have Cobalt. The way I do Cobalts is they have very difficult with retaining memories. So if they're away from a dragon for more than like a couple days, and they run across another dragon, they start worshiping that dragon. We had a dragonborn character. We had a couple kobolds break into the boat that they were on. They literally pulled out the porthole and climbed through into their berth. And then kind of messed up the room, which was like, oh my gosh. But because of how I have my kobolds, this is something they would do.
I love kobolds in that sort of way, in like a jungle gym hijinks sort of way. Even this map behind me that's supposed to be a kobold lair. You can't really see it all the way, but there's like not just the dungeon, and these dungeon has some like little tricksy tunnels in it.
Oh yeah,
but there's also this exterior area that has like tree fort looking platforms and like rope bridges connected to them.
I'm trying to remember. There is something going around. I don't remember the name of the kobolds, but it was one of the older versions, where this party hated the kobolds because of the way this guy ran the mega dungeon. And it wasn't because the kobolds were overpowered. They were tactical.
Yeah, they're tricksy little bastards, and they got traps and like dump.
Oh
bugs
yeah,
on
the
you
entire supposedly this entire floor of this mega dungeon was lined with tunnels. And these kobolds were just imagine special forces. You were going up against special forces. They were creating barricades to trap the party members, and they were doing all this stuff. And the party claimed that the more difficult monsters were the easier thing to fight, because the kobolds were so tough to fight because of the way he ran them. And if you think about it, any low-level monster, if you play as a DM, if you really want to do DM versus player, I do not recommend this for those who think of being a DM. Do not be the DM versus player mentality. It will ruin campaigns. But if you wanted to, you could run low-level monsters very strategically and kill your party, or make your party in a living nightmare. Hate these monsters so much.
The kobold layers in the forest, but don't go there. Everyone who's gone has never come back. Yeah, that's what I always hear. Come on, let's go. No, I'm being very serious. Don't go to the kobold's lair. Yeah. Huh.
Later that day,
there's nothing in here. Oh, a door opens in the ceiling with a grate, and they just dump down boiling oil on you and shut the door.
Yeah, that's literally what you can do. There is so much you can do with any level of monster. as long and you go, if they have some sort of intelligence, play up that intelligence.
Yeah.
You have a pack of wild wolves.
Right. There's a big difference between
Don't
a
have
wolf
them all
fighting you
rush
and a
in.
kobold fighting.
Yeah, don't have all these wolves just rush in. Have them do what wolves do. Drag the fight out. Have them wear the party down with hit and run tactics as a wolf actually does. Use the wolves to chase the party. Do different things where you can literally wolves will do this in actual real life where they will chase animals and take turns chasing it to wear it out before they take it down. They do that to the party. You can do so much different things with creatures if you know what you're if you do a little research. Again,
Yeah, or
as
just
a DM,
or just get into the mind of the creature, just in the
yeah,
moment, like, what would this creature do? What's the
the,
intelligence score? Ah, yeah, what's its motivation? If you just take a brief moment and just think, what would it actually do, and
oh yeah,
try to run it that way instead of like a MMORPG mob.
yeah. You're not playing a video game. Let's be clear. Dungeons and Dragons is not a video game. It is a it's, it's you're trying to be in a as real as a possible scenario in a whatever setting it is. Your
Yeah.
characters are characters in this scenario. The DM, as I've told people, you are the narrator of this story.
Mm-hmm.
You narrate what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
The players are the main characters choosing where to go within this narration.
Yeah, yeah.
You paint the world, you paint the picture for them to go explore, and then you paint the world as they continue on this exploration. But you are not the story. You're not the main character. The players are. You create the world for them to explore in, though.
Yeah.
The players dictate what happens.
Yeah, that's a good. I think that's a good perspective. I like seeing it that way too. Setting a stage, putting all the props there, getting the NPCs ready, and then in the middle of whatever Act One, or yeah, we'll say in the middle of Act One, enter stage right player characters. Oh, we're in the middle of this peculiar scene. Well, now the players are here and they're gonna start poking and prodding with the props
Oh yeah.
and the NPCs, and let's see
Every,
what happens on this stage
other
of
than Dragon Heist,
wonders.
all my campaigns have been player driven. I tell them, hey, this world is open. You guys go do what you want to do. I have overarching stories here that you can go explore, but I'm not going to tell you what to go explore first. This is literally your guys' world to go explore. I created the world, but it is your adventure, your story to go write and create. I'm just narrating what you have done or doing. It so I try to give the players as much control of what they want to do. And I feel it works. Sure, I give them ideas of where they can go and explore, but that's it. I don't tell them what they can or can't do. If they want to try something, sure. Roll to see if you can make it work. I don't say no. I try not to say no. There's been a couple times where I have to say
Mm-hmm.
no,
Yeah.
only because I know it's like, no, you can't actually do this because it won't, or for whatever reason. And then I tell them why they can't do it.
Yeah.
And, but also the other thing is I like with my players is if they come to me with an ability that I've never heard or don't know how it works, I go, I don't know if it works that way. Let me look this ability up or read me what this ability does. They read me what the ability does, and then I make a call, and it's like, and they usually will, if I give it a bad call, they will accept the bad call, and then talk to me about it later. They don't make a fight of it on the spot.
Oh, that's
They
good.
understand it.
Yeah, that's good.
If I make a call, it is the call that is on the table. If a call will then get changed, I have something on Discord to go, hey, this is what the new call is on these situations going forward. It is the homebrew rules for the world. So if I make a call, this is what the rules are going to be for this situation going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's an ability or a situation I don't know about. The being able to summon the sword. I'm like, okay, I made a call. Adamantium prevents that going forward. They now know that. So that is something If I have to make a call, I make a call. They accept it. They don't fight it, and then we talk about it
That's good, man. Yeah, that's a good sign.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
So
not all players are like that. Some will
Yeah.
really battle you.
Yes, I've seen it, and I've seen it happen before,
I know.
where players will try to fight it.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, I've also been in situations where I've had a DM who's made a bad call, in my opinion. I don't call him out on it there on the spot. I talk to him afterwards. He created a natural one table where if you critical fail something bad happens.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that, and I kind of questioned it there on the spot, but I accepted it in the end. I'm like, all right, fine. All right, fine. And then afterwards, I talked to him. I sent him a couple of videos on what he
dreadfully
did.
with your axe and chop off your own big toe.
Well, actually, what happened was my character was up in a tree, was using their short bow at the time, rolled a natural one, and then suddenly I fell out of the tree. I'm like, okay, that shouldn't have happened. And then there was a couple of other things. But afterwards, I sent them a couple of videos on why you shouldn't use a natural one table like that.
Mm-hmm.
Should not make the situation worse. Because now, not only was reason I stayed up in the tree was because my character didn't have great stats. So I didn't want to be in melee combat. Now, not only am I going to be in melee combat, I've taken fall damage. I did not like that, and I kind of tried to get the DM to go, hey, fine, I'll roll that back. DM didn't want to. I'm like, all right, fine. And then afterwards, I went more into it with the DM, and they actually removed that mechanic from the game. Going, this mechanic needs a lot of work. I got to retool it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, fine. Because they were going, oh no, you're not failing, you're falling forward. You're failing forward. And it's like, no, it's still failing. Because, and I explained it. I was like, you had me fall out of the tree and take fall damage. I did not want to fall out of the tree. I didn't want to be on the ground. I did not want to be in melee combat. And now I have taken extra damage. It puts me into a worse situation. So they eventually, I don't know if they ever recreated it. Not going to worry about it. I don't play with that person anymore, unfortunately. Was a good friend. Other stuff caused us to have a riff. But that's the thing.
Yeah, I think your approach overall is a good one. I have a similar perspective, which is just basically, try my best to say yes as much as possible, or at least, give a kind of make a kind of offer, make a deal to the player. Like, it's a little too much what you're asking, but I'll make you this deal, and maybe you can you can take a risk and maybe pull that off, or have a drawback if you fail, or maybe we can find something that is similar but just not quite as far-fetched. But yeah, every once in a while there's a situation where it has to be a hard no.
One of the things in Dragon Heist, my players wanted to rescue the clockwork creature from the temple. I don't remember what it was called. Technically, they weren't supposed to be able to do that. But I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'll roll with it, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
They got him out. There's supposed to be enchantments to prevent him from getting out, but I'm like, you know what? Screw it. They're going this far. I'm going to let them get away with it. And they eventually disguised him as a warforged and kept him around at the Troll Skull Manor to act as kind of like a server and waiter and butler for the house and the manor, because they wanted to kind of do different stuff. But I rolled with it, so they know I will roll with their stupid shit. As I would say, oh, you want to try to steal the crown off the king's head? All right, sure, roll for it. Let's see what happens. Oh, natural 20. Okay. I had another one where they got arrested, and one of them goes, yeah, sure, we'll pay the fine of 1 copper. Roll. Natural 20. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'll roll with it. They go buy potions. Natural 20 again. Screw it. You can get a couple potions for a copper. I'm like, fine, I will roll with this.
That's called diplomancy.
Oh yeah, and it's like, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna roll this. Sure, technically they should have been able to get away with it, but you know what? I want them to have fun with this game. It's about having fun. It's not about, again, it's not the DM versus players. It's about the players and the DM having fun at the same time. And that's always why,
for me,
at the end of my
a big part
games,
of the satisfaction of GMing is being along for the ride with the players, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, seeing the story unfold, and whether they succeed or fail or somewhere in between. That's the magic of it for me. It's the kind of like a living experience.
Yeah, one of the things I do at the end of every of my sessions, I ask them, "Did you guys have fun?" And if I have yet to get a no, and I'm dreading the day I get a no, because that tells me I've screwed up somewhere.
Well, you could probably learn something from that.
Yeah. And again, I also tell my players, hey, if you guys have an issue, let me know. Don't sit on this issue. I want to fix the issue.
Yeah,
I've yet to have an issue. We did have one issue, but I had to fix it. We had a player who was not meshing with the group very well. So I had to let this player know, hey, you can finish this campaign out, because we're almost done with the campaign, but I cannot let you back at the table for the next one. You are not meshing with the group.
Yeah.
I've had multiple players now come to me, tell me that they're having issues with you.
Yeah, that's always an awkward situation, but you just got to deal with it. Yeah.
And this player, we were having issues for almost the entire campaign. They weren't really engaging. They were sitting on their laptop and kind of not really engaging. And I did try to fix this earlier in the campaign. It worked a little bit, but then they went right back to bringing their laptop and just playing on their laptop. So it's like, I did try, and it wasn't until literally one of our players, who's literally got the patience of a saint, told us they were having issues with this player. And it was at that point I was like, okay, we're gonna have to let this one go.
Yeah,
I can't.
That's I've had that. Even till today, I'll have that. Sometimes I'll be in a session and it's like, that player's just messing around on his phone. Does he have Does he have some very important business to attend to right now at this moment, or would he rather be doing something else? So.
I'll be honest with, when I was playing with you, my ADD, ADHD would not let me truly focus 100%. So I usually had like a solitaire game, some quick game I could pause to focus right back in real easily if it came to me. But that was because my mind has a very difficult time focusing on one simple thing super easily. When I do hyperfocus, I hyperfocus. Now, when we were in combat, I wasn't doing anything but focusing on the combat. But if there was like a big scene that I had no direct involvement in, I usually was playing solitaire, but I was still listening to the game.
So what you're saying is your brain is naturally wired to be a GM who has to multitask all the time.
Yes, it is. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like being a DM, is because I do multitask so easily. But I was listening, I was taking notes, I was keeping track of what was going on, but I had a hard time just hyper, as it says, hyper focusing on it.
There's a big difference between that and someone who's just scrolling around on their phone.
Oh yeah, and that was the issue. This player was pretty much just scrolling on their laptop online and stuff like that, which is it's a disrespect to me and my other players. And so we first tried to get them to get rid of the laptop. It worked for I think 2 sessions, and then they brought it back, and it was like, okay, this isn't gonna work. And all the other stuff added up. I eventually had all the players who were telling me
where it's like, sorry, this just isn't working. Thank you for giving my game a try, but we're just gonna have to part ways.
And I did offer them the chance to finish out the campaign, because I didn't want to be the person who just goes, no, you're not ever welcome back. I wanted to let them at least finish this campaign.
That's very generous. Yeah, that's generous.
And I just told them, it's like, unfortunately, you will not be welcome back at the table for the next campaign. Again, we're on. After that, we got the cold shoulder and passive aggressiveness for a little bit, until I don't know what happened, but eventually that person it was more of a mutual thing, because we were coworkers. So we kept the mutual respect of co-working respect, and we never let that interfere with how we treated them, even though we disliked how they were being as a player.
Sure.
So we treat them. It's like, no, they're our coworkers, so we respect them as our coworkers. So eventually they stop being passive aggressive, and we're on friendlier terms. We won't ever welcome back to the table because, again, we had issues in the past.
Right.
We know they're not a good fit. And again, I also run a little bit darker games. I had drug addiction. Characters got addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
Gnomes get addicted to lavender. It's something I created for my game. It's kind of a weird drug because they will get high and have hallucinations at the same time. We had a bit of fun with that, though some players did not like it. So it's something that my players know. I let my players know. It's like, hey, there's going to be racism in this game. I'm not going to pull my punches on how characters will see another race.
Right. Yeah,
humans are going to be a little more bigoted.
I generally tell players things like there are things in here that, you know, we modern real world people would call racism or even slavery, but the people in the game world aren't going to use those terms, and they're not going to see it the same way that we see it. And it's not exactly the same as comparing to, like, essentially modern American history. I'm American, a lot of my players are American. It's going to be seen through a different eye and a different lens. So, you know, some people I think have that kind of context where it's more of a historical thing, like just an easy reference or an easy example would be like Roman Empire. Probably half the people in the Roman Empire were slaves, if not more.
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah, but that's different than like American history chattel slavery, which I would argue is even worse, right? Like more brutal. That like a Roman Empire slavery is more like almost more like an indentured servitude. Yeah, it's still by reason and morality wrong and terrible, but it's not like it's a different thing. It's more like you or your family probably has some kind of debt, and you're working to try to work off this debt. Maybe you will and you'll get freed, maybe you won't, or maybe someone is a criminal and so they're getting used for like labor, like a hard labor. So it's usually some kind of like a financial, legal, social issue.
Yeah, there's a number of different reasons.
It's not like a race-based, you're being treated like an animal, which is probably the most horrible kind of slavery ever known to the history of mankind.
Yeah.
So, but you're not going to see, you know, characters going around, NPCs. You're not going to see NPCs going around referring to it in the same way that we would refer to it, because to them, that's just the life they know. Now, maybe there is an NPC that that thinks it's wrong, or that knows it's wrong, or maybe there's a player character that knows it's wrong and wants to change things and fight against it. Kind of like what Daenerys Targaryen does in Song of Ice and Fire.
I was about to say.
Or Game of Thrones before it just completely went off the rails.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's very interesting how it's treated, because it's treated with the complexities of how the world really would be. Because the character, Daenerys, she knows that it's wrong, because it is, like, objectively speaking, it's wrong, even though the world doesn't quite get that. The world doesn't have that same awareness. But she goes and tries to make too much change too fast and destabilizes entire regions and causes
she just
other
stabilizes about
problems.
half the world.
Yeah, and causes other problems that ripple out. And it's so beautiful because it's like, gosh, that like kind of nails the chaotic good alignment, where the characters is following a conscience and trying to do the right thing, and in a way kind of is fighting for what's right, or maybe objectively is fighting for what's right, but the way that they're going about it is if not haphazard, too wild, or too much change too fast, and it has all these unintended consequences that ripple out. That's so ripe for storytelling. Like there's just so much conflict that's great for storytelling there. That's why history is so great, because history is just full of conflicts and human flaws, and as much as it has atrocity and war and terrible things, it has all these super interesting stories and events that happen. It's just like that. It's that human story, that human struggle to, figure out like what the hell are we doing, and to establish something that is the right thing to do. And we don't know exactly what's the right thing to do, and we kind of muck and muddle through that, and sometimes do wild and crazy things and pay the price for it. And so yeah, we should probably wrap up there. This is very interesting to me, and I'll ramble all night long otherwise.
I want to say one last thing, because we got back to history. My favorite quote or saying is, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes. And those who study history are doomed to watch everybody else repeat it.
Yeah. And it is true. For a DM, our greatest resource is history.
It's an excellent one.
So much stuff.
Yeah. Vince, it was great chatting with you, man. It was great catching up.
I am glad you invited me back onto the stream. Shoot me a message when it's my turn again, or whenever you want me back on. I will bring something for us to talk about every time.
Excellent. I look forward to it. And hopefully you can play some in Myriad Legends, the community campaign.
I will look into it. Again, school year is starting up again, so my time is coming. My free time is starting to become more and more limited.
Well, it's ideal for that position.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just look for a adventure post. If it fits your schedule, just grab a session and play, and that's it. You're not locked into a regular schedule or anything.
Yeah. So we'll see how, once I get my actual driving schedule, I'll see how it goes, because the fall field trips are also going to be starting up pretty soon. So I'm going to be jumping on every single one I can get and getting that extra money.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, stay productive, and hope to see you around.
Yeah, for sure. As I said, invite me whenever you want.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody who caught the stream. Great to have you along. Appreciate the support. And as always, may your adventures be many.